Y'all want to watch a Tubi horror movie, but based after the Civil War? After 4 years, the Civil War has finally ended. The lands that used to belong to Confederate families are seized and granted to the newly freed people. One of the lots, a massive 40-acre land, is awarded to a family of 5. Father and his eldest son, Abe, check the property first. There's Confederate flags abound. Abe discovers freshly butchered meat in the barn, but father tells him to keep it a secret. While doing laundry, Lula, the eldest daughter, tells her siblings to stop messing around, otherwise master will hit them. But she realizes she is no longer a slave and joins in on the fun. At night, father orders Lula to be ready to leave anytime. The next day, father and Abe start to dig. Father refuses to plant cotton because it's only a reminder of the life they used to live, so he chooses to plant peaches. Meanwhile, Elijah and Hanny busy themselves with reading their mother's Bible. There are drawings on the pages, but they don't know what they are for. Meanwhile, Lula sees a shadow just behind the kids. While Abe is out here looking fine, their mayonnaise neighbor decide to blame Abe for messing up his hunt for Bambi. The white father puts Abe in a chokehold while the little Kyle Rittenhouse watches. Lula holds a rock and tells them to let Abe go. The little boy hits father with the base of a gun, and father orders Lula and Abe to apologize and not argue even further. The white man, who happens to be wearing very modern clothing, tells the family that there's a reason why they got the land for free and insinuates something more insidious. A little later after that, eerie things start to happen. First, Hanny finds a doll, and then a figure appears under the sheets. There's no one under, but there are shackles on the bed.
Oh my God.
Oh, hell no. The next day, they are visited by their neighbors, Taryn and Fiona. Lula thinks Taryn is fine, so she wants to see what they want. But father stops her. Taryn is nice enough to give them bread and some medicine, but father is so paranoid that he is on the defense. In addition, Taryn loans some books to Lula to read, including the Bible. But Taryn says,
I fancy myself more of a man of science, but I do enjoy a good fiction.
Shady. Father is not pleased, and he tells Taryn that they don't need any handouts from anybody. Even after being freed, father is still worried that people will come and take them away, so he puts locks on the doors. Lula confronts him, saying it's his paranoia that made their mother leave. Father then slaps Lula across the face, but no one dares to interfere. That night, they hear strange noises around the house. Curious, Abe goes out to check. Suddenly, he disappears into thin air. Lula, on the other hand, finds a journal under a drawer. She goes into another room and finds dresses along with a pendant. When Lula sees Abe, he seems to be sleepwalking. He doesn't respond, so they just help him back to bed. However, the next day, they find him unable to move or speak. Taryn, who is a doctor, checks on Abe, but even he can't guess what's wrong with Abe. Suddenly, a few officers show up and read a decree that demands profit sharing from the granted lands. The family only has 6 months to grow their crops, and father realizes it can't be peaches. Defeated, he tells the officers they'll be growing cotton. The fugly white officer laughs at them, and I bet he got a micro PP. Haney is still young, but she already knows that their mother will never return. Lula tries to be a mother while being an older sister, but Hanny wants her to just mind her own business. That day, father realizes that the seeds they planted are going to die before they grow. He asks Abe for help, but Abe is still not himself. Frustrated, father grabs and hits Abe before Lula steps in and stops him. Because Abe is not getting better, Lula and her siblings decide to take him to the Irish leprechaun, Taryn. While Lula and Taryn discuss some matters, the two kids wander outside and find Fiona cleaning her wound in the river. They get frightened, so they immediately run back. Taryn reveals that the war started shortly after they arrived. He says that they didn't really get along with their new neighbors because he believes in science, while others believe in RFK Jr. Seeing Taryn as trustworthy, Lula asks him for help to figure out what's wrong with their land. Nothing planted ever grows there. Taryn has a friend named Malachi who is an expert on soil. The catch is Malachi won't really inspect the land unless it's Taryn's. One morning, father decides to sell the dresses at the market to make money, which he will use to buy seeds. While he's away, Taryn's friend Malachi visits to check the land. The siblings hide so Malachi won't know they live there. After getting some dirt, Malachi leaves right away. He returns later that day to tell Taryn what he discovered. When Lula sees Malachi arriving, she covers Abe with a blanket and tells her siblings to hide. Malachi is shocked to see Lula in the house, but she says she is Taryn's friend. But Abe suddenly appears, and so do Hanny and Elijah. Hanny reveals that the house belongs to them, including the land. Malachi gets so angry and exclaims that a lot of his friends died because of black people in the war. He threatens to cut Lula open to see if they really are the same underneath that skin. You're not the same because this big back man has a thick layer of fat. Lula grabs a sickle, determined to fight back.
You're just a gutless pig.
Malachi chases her while the kids run out of the house. During the chase, black smoke appears and seems to bewitch Malachi before it breaks his chubby arm. Elijah and Hanny are outside, and the boy tries to get their mother's Bible, which is stuck under the carriage. In a rush to leave the property, Malachi fails to notice the little boy nearby. Elijah gets run over by the carriage and dies on the spot. The family can't do anything but bury him and grieve his death. Heartbroken, Lula tries to burn the barn down before Father stops her. Father exclaims that there are bigger enemies outside to worry about. But Lula stands her ground and says their mother left because she's fearless, unlike Father. Feeling suffocated by her father, Lula decides to run away. She goes straight to Taryn, who just got beaten by some men. Lula tends to Taryn's wounds, and these two look like they want to make ice cream swirl. Then Lula reveals that Elijah died after being run over by Malachi's carriage. Taryn is furious and wants to take matters into his own hands. Lula stops him from doing so. Then she shows him the journal she found. Taryn reads the entry written by Adian, the previous owner of the house. There, Adian wrote that she discovered a secret and kept it from her husband. When he found out, he became violent towards her. So when the war began, Adian prayed to a strange entity to take her husband away. Her husband died, but their little girl was also taken. When it gets dark and Lula hasn't returned, Father heads out to look for her. Hanny is left to look after Abe, but he suddenly disappears. While she looks for her brother, the dark smoke appears and takes her too. After learning what's written in the journal, Lula decides it's best to return home. Taryn insists on walking her home so they can check on her family together, but the house is empty when they arrive. While looking around, she sees that the pages of their mother's Bible have been folded neatly. It was Elijah's doing. It reveals some kind of map that seems to be pointing them to something important. Lula has a very strong feeling that their mother is leading them somewhere. Mother left years ago and never came back, but Taryn thinks there's no way Lula's mother has visited the place before. But Lula insists on following the map. They head to the well near the barn as depicted in the drawing. Taryn helps Lula get down by grabbing onto the rope. Lula finds a hole on the side of the well just before she reaches the bottom. Inside are the remains of a woman. Lula's curiosity is stronger than her fear, so she grabs the woman's hand and is transported to the past. Lula sees the previous owner of the house, Adian, with some slaves. The war has just started and Adian orders the others to hide right away. Even Fiona is there to help. Lula wants to reach out to her mother, but she can't move her feet. Just then, she finds herself inside the house where Taryn is. Suddenly, Confederate soldiers arrive, looking for the slaves. Taryn defends Fiona when the soldiers turn their attention to her. Adian, on the other hand, welcomes the soldiers and even offers them food. But the soldiers know she's hiding something. Adian refuses to say anything, but Taryn reveals that slaves are hidden in one of the rooms. What a traitorous whore. Soon enough, Lula's mother and the others are taken by the soldiers. Adian speaks up, saying the soldiers can't take the slaves because they are her property. For attempting to save the slaves, Adian is taken to the well as a punishment. Taryn didn't think that anyone would be killed. He thought that after he ratted out the slaves, Adian's land would be given to him. What a leprechaun twat. Now, it's all too late. The lieutenant hands Lula's mother a knife and orders her to cut off the well's rope, leaving Adian to die down there. In exchange, she'll be given her freedom. She refuses, so the knife is handed to Taryn. As Taryn cuts the rope, Lula's mother tries stopping him. During the struggle, Taryn accidentally stabs Lula's mother in the stomach. Afterward, the lieutenant dumps her body in the well. Lula can't do anything but watch and cry. In the present, Father is still looking for Lula. At this point, Taryn grabs him from behind and drags him into the barn and chains him up. When Lula returns to the present, she realizes that the woman in the well is her mother. By the time Taryn pulls her up, he is aware that Lula knows the truth. Father is still chained in the barn and struggles to free himself, but the dark smoke appears and releases him. Taryn finally reveals his true pale colors. He's not pleased that the land that was supposed to be his was granted to Lula and her family. Lula offers to share with him so they can fix the land together, but Taryn doesn't want to, so he lets go of the rope in an attempt to kill her. Lula luckily grabs onto the edge, just in time for Father to come to her rescue. He throws the 5'1" Tehran into the well and saves his daughter. They still haven't found Hanny and Abe, no matter how hard they look. Suddenly, the dark smoke appears and locks them in a room. Lula realizes that her mother is always around to keep her promise to always come home. She knows she has to make it right with her for the last time, so Lula offers her hand for Mother to take. Then she's taken to the other side, where she catches a glimpse of Abe. Mother is still hiding, thinking that the soldiers are going to take her. So Lula takes out the pendant to remind Mother who she is. Mother is surprised that Lula has grown so much when she has only been gone for a week. So Lula explains that it's been years since she last saw her mother. They're trapped on the other side, where Mother thinks they are always on the run. She's planning to get the entire family, but Lula tells her it's time to let go. When Mother finally understands, she tells Lula to take care of the entire family before she gives her one last hug. When Lula returns, she finds herself in the bunker of Taryn's house. Hanny is also there, and the two struggle to get out. Luckily, they manage to escape before it catches fire. Father is overjoyed that his daughters are safe, and on top of that, Abe has returned. A few days later, the soldiers come back to check on them. Abe and his siblings reveal that they've already picked a surname, Mothers, a name picked in honor of their mother. Then Abe adds that they will be growing peanuts on the land until their peaches mature. The soldiers deliver the news that the president has been shot and another decree has been issued. But Father crumples the document, promising that no decree can ever ruin what they've built. In the end, they've successfully grown the crops on their 40-acre land. I'm glad it has a great ending, but they really killed that little boy in the movie, and it made me sad. For a Tubi movie, I'm glad this was different from the typical trifling film. It could have been executed better in the right hands, like Jordan Peele. What did you guys think of this one?
Did y'all like that one? Honey, well, make sure you like and leave us a comment. I try to respond to as many as I can. And if you like Tubi, Lifetime, or just straight up trifling movies, make sure you subscribe for real. For more videos, you can click here or here.